welcome to the Hit Like a Girl podcast. My name is Joy Rios, and today I'm talking with Rory Stanton, the founder and CEO at Aila Health, which is an AI-enabled precision health management platform that empowers autoimmune patients with personalized health at home. Her work helps high-needs patients understand and manage their symptoms with online education, supportive communities, and holistic care from board-certified physicians. All right, let's get started.
Rory Stanton, I'm the founder and CEO of Aila Health, and we're building a virtual care platform for patients living with complex autoimmune diseases. Our kind of specific focus within this area, of course, is really tying all those disparate pieces of the healthcare ecosystem into a better patient experience living with, for folks living with chronic illness. There's a lot of fragmentation in the kind of clinical model that exists for patients living with autoimmune today. And we really wanted to take kind of digital tools, both through kind of telemedicine, remote monitoring, and the ability for patients to kind of track and trend their own symptoms over time to deliver better outcomes for these patients. So that's kind of what we're doing at Aila. As far as HITLAB, I recently pitched at a women's health forum or event, really to kind of highlight actually that autoimmune issues are a huge women's health issue. About 75% of all cases of the 50 million Americans living with autoimmune are women. And so, it's really important to kind of highlight that this is a huge women's health issue, and we need to start investing in it and providing resources for women living with these diseases.
So what are some of the diseases that we're talking about? I mean, that's kind of a generic blanket of autoimmune disease.
So I know that's pretty broad. So autoimmune, there's about 100 different diseases that fall within that category, typically inflammatory diseases. Some of the ones that you might commonly kind of think of that come to mind are multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, IBD, or ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, so gastrointestinal issues. That's kind of where we're looking to play in terms of initially supporting and then expand out from there as we kind of build out the care model.
So folks who have an autoimmune disease, let's look at their current state versus, state with Aila. Like, what is the current state or their experience kind of going through the healthcare system? Like, why does it need support?
Yeah, I think it can most probably be depicted as someone trying to pull their hair out. At least I've had hundreds of conversations with patients living with autoimmune issues, and hear time and time again the consistent frustration that patients have with the healthcare system. One, on their diagnosis journey, which can take anywhere from 5 to 10. I've talked to people who've sometimes taken 20 years to get a diagnosis because there's not, a ton of lab tests to support definitive autoimmune diagnosis. It makes it really difficult and challenging. And then on the other hand, just the ongoing management between kind of navigating the health insurance landscape, getting on a therapy that works for them or treatment that works for them, managing multiple chronic conditions at the same time. Many people are dealing with depression or anxiety on top of their autoimmune disease, and sometimes disability as a result of their autoimmune disease. So how do they navigate things like, even social settings at home as well as at work, in the context of living with those conditions? And so our goal really is to provide support resources for patients living with those conditions, and then, help patients understand kind of their own unique baseline about what's going on with their care at any given time, because often a lot of that data does not get collected at the point of care visit. And so we're trying to create more of a longitudinal health record for patients that have these long ongoing chronic conditions.
So essentially it's like giving patients the opportunity to collect all of their health information from all of the different providers that they see and essentially keep it in their pocket, and so that if anybody needs access to it, they have it.
Exactly. That's kind of how we got started. And then, of course, now we have our clinical arm that can provide care and services. provide a mental health professional, specialty care providers, whether that's a rheumatologist, a gastroenterologist, a personalized nutritionist that can help support with an anti-inflammatory meal plan that's also supported by tools within our mobile app. And then a one-on-one health coach that works with them as a dedicated kind of companion along their journey as their membership, through Aila. So
Oh,
that's really how we're supporting patients.
oh, I really like that idea. So if they have somebody who's a dedicated coach that they're just like, hey, I'm checking in. This is what I'm struggling with today, whether it's insurance or a particular doctor or food or mental health, they'll point them in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. So they can help both on care coordination and helping them kind of navigate some of those challenges that you just mentioned. And also, I think with, autoimmune in particular, inflammatory conditions in particular, there are lifestyle modifications that people can adopt to help manage or control the incidence of flares or, inflammation or exacerbation of symptoms. And so the coach kind of works with patients to support them in making some of those modifications, whether the nutritionist has designed an anti-inflammatory meal plan and they want to stick to that and kind of see how those changes are impacting their body's sensitivity really to different things, or if it's an exercise plan or a breathing plan. Those are all things that the health coach can help support with.
That's awesome. That's got to be a lot of like a huge relief for the patients.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Our goal really was to listen to the pain points that we heard and design the app basically to support them with the different things they're managing. I think that's again kind of, there's no silver bullet with autoimmune. It's multifactorial, and some things work for some patients where they don't work for others, and so it's really important to kind of build a personalized care plan and approach for each patient.
Well, and I would guess that like on a day by day basis, somebody's either like whatever pain they're feeling or whatever their symptoms are, like it's not going to be the same every single day. So being able to have access to somebody like kind of on call that you're like, hey, today in particular, I'm really struggling. And
Yeah,
whether or
and
not they like get into the doctor isn't really on the agenda, but they still have somebody that they can talk
somebody
to.
to reach out to. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that's a huge part of it, right? Living with a chronic illness can be super isolating and lonely. And that was something super important. We've actually just been building and releasing a patient community where patients can go into the app and connect with one another as well. And so kind of folks that are living with the same types of conditions can then, share insight, ideas, and emotional support, which I think is so critical for a disease like this, where you do have your ups and downs and you need people who really get it to kind of be along with you, not only other health coaches, but other patients who are living with the same condition.
So I'm sure that this has been a journey. Like, so when did you start Isla? Like, how
Yes.
did it begin?
So Aila began as an idea. I actually have a family member who has a chronic illness and has had some autoimmune issues diagnosed since her initial diagnosis, which took like over 5 years. And so, kind of watching that journey and then watching a few other friends and other family members who have kind of had an autoimmune disease that they've been managing for years and just seeing the struggles with it really kind of brought my awareness to this as an area of healthcare that needs some help and needs some innovation. And so I incubated the idea at UC Berkeley when I was finishing up my MBA. And that was kind of as COVID was hitting, that's when I was starting up with the idea and started building the technology platform to be able to support patients, and have been spending the last few months assembling the clinical care team to be able to bring this out to patients, in a few states and hopefully over the next year or so across the country. But we really want to expand access to care, especially these specialists, which oftentimes are hard to get on their schedule in the traditional environment, like make care more accessible to more people by utilizing this virtual application.
So that's kind of a huge accomplishment. You're just like, oh, I'm finishing my, like, was it through partnering with people, or are you also good at building technology? I'm sure you like hiring the right team
Yeah,
members,
so
but I'm
I
sure
brought on, I
all
brought on
of it's been a
a
challenge.
technical lead to support the development. We have a few great engineers that have been building the product. I kind of manage the product development, user kind of interface and design side of things and help manage from that perspective. But yeah, it's really been a team effort. And then I've got a wonderful medical director who's joined us um, and is leading kind of our clinical team development. So it's a really it's a pretty complex thing, right? When you're building something like this. And so there's a lot of hands involved. And I'm so thankful to each and every one of them for all the contributions they make to Aila.
That's really awesome. So do you think that your younger self had any idea that this is where you would be professionally?
I do. I think, I started my entrepreneurial journey doing the lemonade stands, and I had my swim lesson hustle in high school. And, kind of had my own side businesses, I guess, like all throughout my career.
Wait, could you stop for a second? Swim lesson hustle?
Yeah, well, I was a lifeguard and then, did my some lessons on the side, which actually ended up being more lucrative than my lifeguarding. So, anyways, yeah, I've always liked the idea of kind of building, creating, and I think I always knew I wanted to build a meaningful and impactful business. And I tend to take on pretty difficult challenges and hard problems, and autoimmune certainly is one. Like I said, I saw it with my friends and family members, but I also saw it professionally in my career before business school. I'm kind of working in that space on the life sciences side, and just really identified that there is a huge need, and thought, hey, this is something where I really want to kind of dig in. And so got going while I had that period at business school that really incubate the idea and start building it.
Well, can we talk about the idea of like taking on big challenges? Because there's a lot of people that like get overcome by fear or just hesitation or feeling like the need to be perfect before they get started. Like, what would your advice be to somebody who is facing a big challenge to do it anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned a lot about this as well myself, right? Like wanting everything to be, perfect. I think with anything entrepreneurial, you kind of have to iterate as you go. You learn from the market. And so I think it's about kind of, taking something, testing it, taking that incremental knowledge, and then putting that back into either the product or the solution or service, whatever it is you're working on. I think in terms of kind of going for it, I feel very fortunate. I was able to kind of have a lot of resources and support at Cal that really promoted this entrepreneurial path. And so I'd say, that kind of mindset and the ability to think about, okay, what could be rather than what is, was really helpful. And so I think surrounding yourself with people that can get on board with that and help, just help you along your way. You don't have to do everything all on your own. I think oftentimes we might have chatted about this previously, but oftentimes, people, women especially, try to do everything on their own. And it's really important to bring in partners and bring in mentors that can help kind of you get that next step. I think it's just always about taking that next step.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've heard the saying about like I'm coming from somebody who doesn't eat that much meat, but like the phrase is, how would you eat an elephant?
I haven't heard that phrase, but
Okay.
that is like exactly what it is, right?
Yeah, it's like how would you eat an elephant? First of all, let me just say I would never eat an elephant. But
Yeah,
if you were gonna eat an elephant, how would you do it? And the answer is one bite at a time, right?
right. Right. Yeah, I think that's the key. And I think honestly, it's just about kind of being resourceful, connecting the dots, and figuring out where you can tap into either your networks, resources. I mean, there's a lot of innovation support. I think even online that's fairly democratized and, increasingly so. I think there are, challenges with early stage companies kind of getting that next step, if it's on a funding standpoint. So finding out how you can build connectivity in your own networks to kind of help use that as a launch pad is really important.
Well, you've also been, and I know that you're kind of potentially right in the process of going after funding, but for people who are hoping to get on that journey, what advice would you give for them?
Yeah, I think honestly, when you think about fundraising, it's important for founders to one, have their team in place, have their product in place, or their story in place, and what they're really driving at. And I think, curating a list of investors that you want to work with is really important, and finding that alignment early is really important. Because that will ultimately lead to the most success in terms of who you're going to partner with from the capital perspective.
Well,
And
actually,
over the course of the time.
yeah, when you're talking about like doing research on the investors that you'd want to work with, like there's a couple things that have crossed my radar lately that I feel like is probably, I don't know, worth talking about. And one is just like what you're saying of like how do you identify an investor and making sure that they're a good fit for what it is? Is it literally a Google search or
There's a number of different like databases that have this, and there's ways to kind of find out, okay, which companies have these investors invested in. A lot of them have it on their websites. But then, you set up your initial meetings and you kind of get to know a little bit more about the funds and,
yeah.
where they're looking to invest and what they're looking to fund.
And are you finding, because as a women-owned organization, are you finding that there's more women to pitch to as investors?
Yeah, I would say it seems that way, especially like at this HITLAB event last week that we were talking about earlier. It seems that there are more women entering VC. There's more women running funds, starting funds. And it's pretty awesome, right? Because especially if you're pitching a women's health issue or something that predominantly impacts women, people get it pretty quickly, and so. I'd say that that's really encouraging. I think that's going to help democratize just the access to capital in the VC kind of
Yeah,
space in the private markets. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, okay, so if somebody wants to use Isla, like if one member of our audience is listening and wants to like participate in your offering, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so you can definitely check out our website at ailahealth.com. We also have a mobile app available both on Android and iOS on the App Store. And yeah, would love to have, we have both, for patients seeing clinicians, we have an option for that. And we also have an option for people that just want to use the app to self-track their own symptoms and kind of aggregate their health information in one seamless place. So that they can, have better connections with their own care team members. So, and ultimately potentially connect with our community of patients. So, we like to, just broadly make the offering kind of known to everybody, and want to have people join us on this mission to drive forward better outcomes for people living with autoimmune.
I love that. So if I understand correctly, regardless of whatever insurance somebody has or state you guys are like approved in certain areas to work with, that doesn't really matter. Anybody who has an autoimmune disease can check out Isla, at least for their own self-tracking.
Yeah, for our kind of plans that aren't clinical, they can certainly utilize the app to track their own symptoms and connect with other patients within the community. Yeah.
I love it. That's so great. I love what you're doing, Rory. Thank you for sharing with us. And I'm wishing you so much luck on your journey. Like, I can't wait to check in a year or two from now and see how much you've grown.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. It's been fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. Have a good day.